when the Northern troops came in, and the Confederates, as I mentioned, had burnt the Loudon Bridge, but they wanted to be able to go all the way down at least to the Hiwassee River. And this still amazes me to this day. They took an engine, a tender, and we don't know whether they're flat cars, box cars, or what, but they took them apart enough, especially that heavy engine. They moved that engine across, took it apart, moved the parts across on a pontoon bridge, which is nothing but boats with a pathway built across the top of it, rebuilt it on the south side of the river, and ran it on down to the Hiwassee River, where the bridge was partially destroyed down there. And the purpose was primarily gathering up food to feed the armies, which they couldn't get enough across the other way. So when Longstreet started up, actually before he did, in October, when Carter Stevens was still coming up this way, Burnside had pulled his troops all the way back to Loudon. And they decided that that was putting them in a sort of a perilous position, with possibly a large Confederate force in front of them and the Tennessee River behind them. So they decided to withdraw from Loudon. And that was on the 28th of October, 1863. And when they came across, they felt they didn't have time to take that train back apart. So what they did is the three cars, probably box cars, they built up a head of steam in the engine and ran it off the south side of the bridge into the Tennessee River. So that was one engine, one tender, three cars. Later on, Longstreet, General James Longstreet, will come up with a force of about 12,000 men, and then several thousand more will be added to him as reinforcements. But one of the things they got up, they repaired the bridge at Hiwassee River, Charleston, well enough to get the trains across. The men had to march across. They didn't want the men on the cars coming across. But they got 4 trains, and according to the conductor on one of those trains, 75 to 100 boxcars up on this side. And they had brought supplies up. One of the legends that I heard when I was doing my research for the book was that when they were dredged, which all this was dredged out, there's nothing left there now. When this was dredged out back in the 1800s, that they pulled up all these blocks of copper, and that the copper was purchased by a local person in Loudon, sent off to a rolling mill and made into sheathing for houses or roofing. And I thought, that's a heck of a good story, but how do you ever prove it? Well, lo and behold, as I say, a conductor on one of those engines, Nimrod Bell, left an account of his goings on during the war and a little bit afterwards. And he said, at Ottawa, he stopped and picked up a load of copper blocks, and that they were part of the things that went crashing into the Tennessee River. So when the Confederates, when Sherman came up behind Longstreet, they had to run those 4 engines and tenders, which I have the names of. Don't ask me to ask off the top of my head, but it's in the book. Ran those off into the Tennessee River. Now there's a possibility they may have run some ammunition, because people looking for, arrowheads between the Loudon Bridge and I-75 bridge across the Tennessee River constantly are finding arrowheads, but they're also finding bullets, unfired bullets all along. So I think the Confederates probably ran some ammunition off also. We do have another account in the newspaper that the citizens of Loudon were actually wading into the water and pulling out rifle muskets that the Confederates had dumped into the river. So it's conceivable that's where they came from. But they're found on both banks of the Tennessee River.
There was a there was a dive, I think, that took place in 1870, and then one in 1972. The last dive that I'm aware of. where did all that stuff go? I don't know if they found anything or not.
They didn't find anything because there's nothing there. There was so much debris in the Tennessee River that steamboats could not get up the channel. And so beginning in the 1870s and continuing on up probably to the 90s, that main channel was dredged out. So if there's anything left in there, it's more than likely in landfill someplace along the banks. Another persistent, back before I wrote my book on Loudon County in the war, I don't know, about 3 times a year, I would get a call from somebody. Tell me about those trains that went off into the Tennessee River, or the trains, or the cannon. Because if you read Longstreet's report and read Longstreet's memoir, he said they had 4 cannon left at Loudon that they didn't have the horses to move to Knoxville. And so that he told them to take them out to the middle of the Tennessee River and dump them in. Well, that excited me much more than railroads, to be quite truthful. Until you read the Union accounts. And when Sherman came up in December 1863, several reports of capturing 4 cannon. They never were dumped into the Tennessee River. If you read reports over and over and over again, all these people order things. It doesn't necessarily mean they're carried out. The bridge that O.E. Babcock was building across the Tennessee River just above the mouth of the Little Tennessee River, excuse me, he ordered it to be destroyed, and the Confederates captured it. When the Confederates pulled out of here in August 1863, Simon Bolivar Buckner ordered the pontoon bridge at Loudon to be destroyed. Their idea of destroying was to cut the ropes on the south side of the river and let it float around to the other side. So the cannons were not, unfortunately, because I'd love to have one. Interestingly enough, on the cannons, the Battle of Philadelphia, October the 20th, 1863, not all that many killed or wounded, 447 Union soldiers captured, along with 6 little mountain howitzers. Now, mountain howitzers are 12-pounders. They have a barrel just about that long. They're very easily to move around, and that's what Colonel Wolford had. Believe it or not, 2 of those cannons still exist. One is in Atlanta, who I don't know who it belongs to. Another one is in the other Loudon County, Virginia, or the other Loudon County that's in Virginia. And I do know the man there. I know his name. I've talked to him numerous times. I've asked if I can come photograph it, and he's a very nice fellow, but he's sort of a character. And he said, he says, you can photograph it. He says, you can fondle it, you can drool on it, but you can't have it. And I couldn't afford it if I did. If it ever comes up for sale, he's promised to let me know, and I know his son very well also. And he said if it ever comes up for sale, he'll let me know. I'm hoping I can convince County Commission to buy that, because it's not just the serial number, it's actually engraved, both of them, on the barrels, captured at the Battle of Philadelphia, October the 20th, 1863.